planets are my gods. We are so absolutely delighted to be back here with you. We took a little bit of a break for some eclipses, for some of that Mars retrograde vision questing. That's always good to do. And are now back, replenished, more grounded, and just more inspired than ever to continue on. We've been doing this series where we go through each of the signs in the zodiac, looking at some of the deeper soul dynamics within each of the signs and unpacking some of those profound inner workings of the archetype. This is our 6th installment, which means we are all the way up to Virgo. We have a different podcast about Virgo called Blessed Are the Virgo that I super recommend. It was actually one of those moments where it was kind of being revealed to us as we talked about it, these deeper layers of the onion about these parts of Virgo that are really often hidden. And yeah, I just really recommend giving that a listen. So one thing that I was thinking about is just that astrology itself shows us how to live. It shows us how to move consciousness through time and space. So something about that Leo, where you find what makes you shine, you find your expression and your heart sun, and maybe even you want to be rich and famous, whatever, but you find that part of you that's like, I want to create. And then you go into Virgo and it's time to do the 10,000 hours where you actually perfect it. And then you go to Libra and then it's time to collaborate and be in a relationship and to navigate social dynamics. But that you need the Leo first. You need to know who I am and what I want first. Then you need the Virgo, the skill, the discipline, the humility to then put your ego, to aside to learn and grow and perfect. And then you're ready to collaborate. And obviously life doesn't go in such a linear way. Everything's happening all at once. But just in my own, exploration of my unpacking and unraveling codependency, I'm just realizing that there's a lesson in there for me. If I go back to my Leo first, if I go back to my heart first and get clear about that, and then put it through that Virgo gym of the skill, then I'm that much more prepared to collaborate in Libra.
Yeah, and there's something really powerful about us being able to break these, just like all of reality is going in these not linear ways necessarily, but everything's happening at once, everything's all connected, like, everything's birthing and dying, and, there's these seasons that we have, and that puts things into perspective. There's like a ritual about life, about the timing of life. And I think that there's something so powerful about us being able to explore the signs, the 12 developmental stages that humanity has been able to identify and be able to slow it down, break it apart, so that we can really understand that dynamic between them, so that we can help. Like for me, it really helps me see how the desire for perfection, the desire to be masterful in Virgo has actually caused me to compartmentalize or control in certain situations to where it shuts my heart down. It shuts my natural expression down. Even for instance, within this container of the podcast, there's this way in which the platform or the method itself separates me from that immediate connection with like the audience. They're this now elusive character, and that has caused it to where it's like hyper activates my Virgo, to where then it's not as natural of an expression, or my heart has really needed to be worked out, to be able to open myself in that, so that the Virgo desire for perfection doesn't take me out of my body and out of that natural relationship that's really happening. That dance within in the musing, that real, I think, magic really happens. And yet being able to also honor the parts of the Virgo that need to structure and that need to be willing to fuck up, be willing to work hard, to humble oneself and say, okay, I'm going to listen to it, even if I cringe when I hear my own voice and I have a whole dysphoric moment, and just like be, I think there's something about that really like humbles the ego in a way that allows for then that opportunity to also then collaborate, and the challenge is there, which is like, if I'm not connected to my heart and it shuts down my expression, if I'm then overly concerned with perfection, then it can hinder what I bring to the table of the collaboration of us. It can take me out of the rhythm. It's just like in partner dance even. It's like if those things mess up the opportunity to bring oneself and to listen and be in the flow, then it's so much harder to be able to listen to the cues of the other person and be in the rhythm of them, and with them, and then like share in that creativity that's then almost like, then I'm seeing it like bring the Libra back into like almost a Leo experience, where it's like when we're able to bring that, then we get to then share another like area of creativity. It's like that collaboration leads to another spontaneous evolution.
Yes,
that's magic.
Yes, and that's that potential. I mean, Virgo is Mercury in Earth.
Yeah.
And there's something so fucking tricky about that. Because on the one hand, you're dealing with this part of Virgo that is tremendously grounded. I was thinking of everything we've been talking about in terms of Gemini and the Mars retrograde, and how Gemini has that ability to travel through the entire psychic web, but it also has the ability to fracture. It has the ability to see how all of these different pieces of data fit together to form cognitive frameworks and to create evolutionary new possibilities within the intellectual sphere of what we can potentially imagine, and totally transform how we understand ourselves and society and all sorts of other living things. And you take all that Mercury power and you put it in the earth. There's that engineer, that surgeon side of Virgo.
Exactly.
That you're not seeing necessarily just how cognitive pieces of intellectual information fit together. You're seeing how entire systems, material and thought systems all fit together. Right. And that's part of the great gift of Virgo. And at the same time, I think it has that potential to be so embodied, right? In the earth medicine, in the garden, in the health, in the body, in the martial arts, in the archery, whatever it is. But it also has the ability to then jump out into its mind, look back on itself, objectify, and be looking through all different kinds of sort of tripped out Mercury lenses and software programs, like deep collective programs too. You think of the square of the Sagittarius, of that philosophical, or what is our mission, what is our religious program that we're running, as like what's our purpose and how we're meant to be. And then that does deeply affect the way that those programs then root inside of our bodies and fix us. And that moment where the quest for an embodied sense of mastery connected to the material world becomes this outside objective observer of, am I doing it? Is precisely where the shame comes pouring in, and the disconnection from self, from process, from service takes root. Right. And to me, I feel that so strong with that polarity of Pisces. If it's in true service to the realms of Pisces, like, why are we doing it? For the trance or the worship or the feeling? Why are we doing the art? Why are we doing the dance? Why are we doing anything that we're doing inside of that desire for mastery? Even like, why are we doing the relationship? Like, why are you and I doing this collaboration? It's like, because the magic of what we experience in the ways that the archetypes are able to muse through us, and how it's radically changed our life, and our desire to like find community and share that, and create a like culture and a languaging of people that can play within those realms. But then
if any of that gets constricted with the actual doing the work, the chop wood carry water, the actual work, or that desire to perfect and then like need to observe oneself, if that gets disconnected, then we lose that feeling. And we lose the meaning and the purpose.
And that axis, Pisces, Virgo, is like the separation and union axis for me. Like Pisces is union. It's that great big sea. It's where your boundaries dissolve, and that comes with its whole own, you know, karmic inheritance, shadow material, whatever. And that Virgo is the separating.
Absolutely.
And that's its great gift. It can dissect this piece and that piece and this piece, and then
synthesize.
Yeah, like break it apart into its composite aspects in order to resynthesize, to elevate. Mercury being the personal octave of Uranus. Uranus, which wants us elevated, wants everything in its highest possibility, that wants to liberate in order to make it just as exalted as it could possibly be. And Virgo has that, but it has it through this function of consciousness of separating, which also means it has the potential to feel the most separate and the most self-objectified. It becomes its own composite part and then views that with the same critical eye. And
absolutely.
So many Virgos can get in this pain, I think, of the separation, where they're looking at themselves from the outside. Am I doing the right thing or the wrong thing? According to who? Right? Am I showing up the way this person wants me to? It's like almost shadow Libra in that sense. Or like, not shadow Libra, but it's like the dawn of Libra. It's like right before Libra happens.
Right. Right. And I'm even thinking about the square between Sagittarius and Gemini.
Yeah.
Like that desire for attunement, that desire to understand and see ourselves and, be reflected, to know, like consciousness to know itself in the reflection of the other and the reflections in the opposites, you know, but how that Virgo can look at itself and look at its relationships with this critical eye and like put itself almost inside of relationships, I think, that could also be specifically reflecting, what do I need to perfect? What am I doing wrong? You know, what could I do better? You know, I almost like seek out people that are going to reject me, that are harder that have a closed heart, that are harder to open, to be able to like hyper attune myself to the skills of being able to, like, you know, say for instance, even my relationship with nature, you know, it's like being able to work with the poisonous creatures, the scorpions and the snakes and, you know, sharks or yellow jackets that are reactive, you know, and being able to attune myself in order to be able to learn their language. And it's like I'm finding reflections that are going to challenge that, but are also threatening, you know. And there's something really beautiful about that, and then there's something that also could be in that self-deprecating way,
or almost sadomasochistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, give it to me harsh, like give it to me spiky, give it to me poisonous. And so
the consequences are going to like be felt, you know.
And like the belief that is what makes you better, you know, like
then I'm loved. If I choose to be loved by these ones, then I'm really special. Then I really did it perfect.
Yeah, then you
know, then I'm really worthy, right?
Yeah, you really earned love through your own activity.
Right. Then my 10,000 hours have paid off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And I feel like people, you, me, a lot of folks make this game for ourselves all the time. Where from that deep sense of, I am not enough, I am unworthy, we create love games for ourselves to earn worthiness, to earn love, to earn like a feeling of self-worth.
Right.
And, I think that's that kind of Virgo glitch in the software.
Exactly.
A little bit is where instead of going from this ego surrendered place, right, where that Pisces polarity, instead of going in like, I will devote myself to this out of divine love and service, it's like, I will do this as an ego trap.
Right. And what I think also is like in its pure essence, if we're really connected to that Piscean essence of divine love and actual connection, I can really sense out when somebody is processing with me or going into the fire, or the relational fires with me, because they want to move through it. They want to collaborate. They want that desire for us to both shred the parts of our ego that are disconnecting us or creating the, whatever it is, the Two of Swords impasse, and actually be able to connect. Or are we just like fighting to feed each other's ego and like shame or keep projections alive,
And even trying to win the love of someone, they're still so other to you. They're still so separate to you. And then all of that 10,000 hours becomes trying to build the bridge to win them back, to get that sense of unity back. But even if you're working towards love, it's still because they're so other.
Right.
Or even like for me, I used to love harsh criticism from people because it made me feel seen and known. Like I felt like people were like, oh, you're great. Or like, but you're nice. Like people had given me positive feedback, but it always felt so generic to me. And so I would seek out people who were maybe even borderline abusive, but they were so precise in their verbal abuse towards me, so specific. And I loved that.
Yeah, you're like, let me take this and
you
create something to perfect myself with.
Yes. First of all, you see me, Leo. And second of all, this gives me something to work with, something to improve on, something to be in that game with reality of let me show you how worthy I am. If I work really hard, if I'm successful, if I become what you want, then I'll have really done it. The great it. And I'll have won the love of the other, and I won't be separate from them. The other will choose me.
Right. And this is why I think the, dopamine, I love to talk about dopamine.
Very important to talk about.
And this is why I think it's such a powerful chemical for Virgo, is because Virgo is all about mastery and perfection. And dopamine is that motivator. It's that molecule of desire. It's helping us. We get dopamine hits so that we can actually achieve something, that we can move outside of like our own state of where we are presently or contently and move towards something else. And I think that's a really powerful activator of that Virgoian desire. And what you're speaking to about, you see me, even if it's criticism, and then now I can improve myself. We're also being triggered with dopamine, A, to improve ourselves, but also B, because we're having the experience of being rejected. And so we can let our Virgoian system, our Virgoian desires get hijacked by that desire to not be rejected and to also simultaneously achieve. And I think that dopamine is one of the most powerful molecules that affect us in a very intoxicating and addictive way. And also it brings us into that Piscean divine bliss, that Leo creative trance. So it gives us, and it also leads to sometimes that Libran or Scorpionic, oxytocin, neuroepinephrine, and the other love bonding chemicals, so it's, there's this part to me, there's this desire to really master dopamine is what I feel like my Virgo mission is right now, is to be able to really understand that when we're faced with the experience of rejection, that's triggering our survival need, that's actually flooding us with all of these chemicals that feel like love or that feel like something that we need to fight for. And that can then get caught up in our ideas around what society says is perfect, or any childhood trauma, and then we're hijacked by a trauma system, and just to be really aware of when these things are happening, that we then need to be okay, what is really going on here, so we can mitigate the way we respond to those dopamine hits,
And that's the wheel of suffering, right? You're just wounding leads to all of this flurry of activity that's all trying to get back to just feeling good.
And that to me seems also just like that Mercury in Earth, you know, the mind and the belief systems and all of the brain's, you know, neurological processes becoming solidified body and earth reality, you know, and being able to have boundaries and being that dance of mastery of oneself feels like a real dance with our own neurological functioning, and then being able to really be sober inside of that journey while still maintaining the connection to that intoxicating psychedelic trance and magic of Pisces, you know, that does help us also break down these walls, like break through you know, any of our ideas of consensus reality or any of like our preconceived notions of what we're needing to do, because it's like the dance between those two states, I feel like, is what really helps us be in this physical form and be.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, because this was actually in a different conversation that we had, where it's like, what's kind of fueling so much of this Virgo activity? And it seems like a big part of what's behind it is people have a certain high dream of what they're going for. You know, like mine might have been in that like really being seen sort of love bliss thing. I think you have this high dream of being in that intense, nuanced martial arts kind of mastery. Another person with a lot of Virgo I know has this ideal state of being in a kind of samadhi. And someone else has this thing of being like an incredibly precise engineer, the person I'm thinking of. Like we all have these certain states that we're trying to attain that are our version of a flow state, that are our trance. And so much of this activity, I think, is trying to get to that state. Level 1, which like you said, might be trying to heal some of this wounding in the background. Level 2, which might have been the root of what made us feel separate, that we can identify. 3, but that I think sometimes the desire for that high dream creates this intense pressure, and then the belief system that if only we acted a certain way, we could get that high dream, right?
Absolutely.
Is on the one hand, I think true. I think there's a tremendous amount of personal responsibility, and there's also like, you know, being in a continual process of building towards your goals, right? That is empowered to me. But there's also something we've talked about before of like that codependent hook of believing if I take it all on myself and if I do everything right, then reality has to respond.
Yeah,
this
reality,
way.
if it's a reflection of me, then I have full control to like mitigate everything I do, control everything I do, perfect myself, contort myself into the perfect, you know.
And then you're looking at yourself through the Virgo of, am I doing it? And that creates this tremendous inner critic. And then the pressure of the inner critic is so bad that it can lead to, like you said, either sort of obsessive, intensive, trying to do it better, or collapse. Like fight, flight, freeze, appease. All the coping strategies can come in then, because you're dealing with, one, a desire that's so hot, and then a pressure that's so intense, and an inner critic who's so fierce. And that's just a lot to be navigating.
Right. And I oftentimes see that with people with really strong Virgo or Pisces placements, is that they like ping between this overwhelming amount of pressure where like they're either perfect and they're a ballerina and they're like, you know, contorting themselves and doing everything they can to be perfect, or they're just like, their house is messy, they like don't, you know, they're just going off and
full
like
collapse.
Full collapse, you know. And they're oftentimes so sensitive to anything that would trigger that pressure, like zero structure, you know, not wanting to put any discipline
full
in
drug
anything.
bender.
Totally, like won't devote themselves to any discipline that might sustain their physical or energetic, you know, journey into a spiritual, you know,
because if you
experience.
take even a little bit of it, it opens the door to the whole thing. And it's too much. And then I see it too, like, you know, you have phases where you're doing it, and then you fall off, the critics get loud, and it's like, well, fuck it.
Or you also see people that like will not do any psychedelics or won't even do intense versions of meditation or even orgasm in a way that like truly surrenders. It's like all of these places where you could kind of have the veils lift or the boundaries dissolve and release into those places of ecstasy or surrender are really constricted, you know, inside of people with these really strong placements, you know, challenges in that Virgo or Pisces. And then the opposite is they're doing it in containers that are like, you know, tons of ketamine at a festival, and you're doing breath work all day long, and you're like doing all these ancient practices that took however, and you're only learning it in a 3-day period or whatever. You know, it's just kind of going like off the deep end with it, blasting completely open, you know, falling in love in this super addictive, intoxicating way, and then like reeling from it afterwards. Like, why? Oh, it's because I shouldn't have opened. You know,
and we're just thrashed around in
back
this life.
to the, like,
Thrashed around like a dog by its tail. It's rough. It's rough out here.
Well, and also that victimization can come in, I think. And that's where the Virgo is like, take the responsibility to like open and surrender, but hey, also have a fucking container and show some discipline, you know, and yeah.
And I think it's also taking responsibility for the desire inside it. Like, you have a high dream, I have a high dream, right? And then we can just be thrashed around within it. Like, I have Virgo in, I have Uranus and Saturn in the 6th house, right? And for me, just in general, I've had this whole process around my work. And, you know, Pluto in the 5th, right? Like, there's been so long when I wanted to really do something creative and do a writing thing. I tried to be in film for a while and in media. And the dream that I had around being able to produce something creative that I'm really proud of is just so strong and so intense for me. And that the critics that go along with it, the pain that I feel, the pendulum swinging cycles that I go around feeling like I'm not doing it, or it's not happening, or I'm trying but not succeed. All of the pain stories that go around with it are exactly that pinging back and forth. And I watch myself be like, I'm going to write every single day. I'm going to study film editing. I'm going to, you know, for hours and hours, I'm going to sign up for this expensive course. I'm going to run every day and do this and do all the things and eat right and drink water and get sleep and be highly structured. Go from that to, fuck it, I just need to surrender. And the mind is tricky. That Mercury of Earth is tricky because my mind is like, no, I need to surrender. I'm being too forceful with this. I'm pushing too hard. I need to relax and let it emerge and commune with the Pisces muses. And then that doesn't happen and I get frustrated. And really what helps me is taking personal responsibility, not for a new strategy of how to attain the goal, but for the desire itself. And for the fact that I have karma around it, and I'm going to have patterns around it, and all kinds of ego stories and beliefs around it. And in that whole storm, there is a calm point.
Right.
And within that thing of wanting to write, there is an embodied mercurial process of sitting down and writing and just being in very humble practice with it, which is what I think is that Virgo is so emphasizing service, and it requires so much humility. And I think it's because when you're in that egoic roller coaster, it can take you a million fucking places at once. And all of those things are actually just getting in the way of sitting down and doing things.
Right.
Just getting things done. And, you know, it's interesting. I have this client of mine who has also a high dream of being like an expert in their chosen field. And I was relating to them so much because they were saying sometimes when they get, you know, when they want to be better at what they're trying to do and they're asking their collaborators, how can I improve? People will be like, you did great. You did so good. You're so hard on yourself. And it's so aggravating because it seems like the goal that their colleagues are identifying is to help that client feel better in the moment, to help them relax, Feel better. Feel okay about it.
Right.
Stop beating yourself up. Whereas my client's goal is excellence.
Right.
And no one is helping them be excellent.
Like they're not able to actually identify the true desire or ask.
They're not supporting the real goal.
Yeah.
You know? Like, do you think Beyonce, great Virgo, like, do you think when Beyonce's like, I don't think that track was good enough, or I like want my dance performance to be better, do you think people are like, Beyonce, don't be so hard on yourself?
Maybe, but Beyonce is a motherfucking Virgo, and she overrides it.
It's like, no, I'm gonna fucking bust my ass and work harder. I'm gonna demand everyone on my team do the same. And I think that's that thing. It's like, how can you be like, Virgo, I think, can sometimes that inner critic, that shame, that, you know, chaos or whatever that they create out of that, those dynamic responses can call for people around them to say, like, stop being so hard on yourself, calm down. And that's important because, like, when I'm there, I do need to not be so hard on myself. I do need to value what I've, you know, there's so much
what
that
you have done,
what I have done, yada yada. That's true.
Yada yada.
Is my Virgo
there
coming out? But I also need support to actually be grounded and focused and like be in relationship with my Mercury to be on the path to achieving my goals for real, not on some big blown out pay me $10,000 for the master class of whatever, not on like if you do this strict system every single day for 30 days, like actual practical get out of my own way, let it happen.
And part of, you know, what I'm learning about the dopamine is they were also calling it in this book that I was reading, it was the molecule of more. And the dopamine is being that I want more. I see the high dream. I want to do it. I have all the energy. I have the resources to be able to go for it. Mm-hmm. You know, the work or whatever it is, you're getting the dopamine surges actually in that process of that self-actualization and mastery, that high dream journey, right? But the H and N is what they call it, the here and now neurotransmitters, is the neurotransmitters that's actually a different part of our neurological system that is helping us to be content, to be satisfied, to be relational, to be emotional, to be present, you know. And so we're able to, that's why I always think it's this Virgo Pisces axes. Like if we're able to access, not just I will let myself have the Pisces in the future, I will let myself have the opportunity to be emotional and present and content and to be grounded in this experience of the journey only after I've succeeded. I think Virgo does that a lot sometimes in its more shadowy, hijacked form, you know. But if we're able to realize, like for me, just a practice that I like to do when I'm making music is I will spend however much time making the structure. I'm writing the song, I'm getting the rhythm on the frame drum, I'm doing what I need to do to get that song into its presentable form, right? It needs a structure to be able to share it. And then after that, I spend a certain amount of time to go into the trance where there's no words, there's just jamming, or there's just me speaking in a star language, you know. It's just me really allowing that Piscean channel to flow. And so that it's not just after I get the CD made. I'm showing my age by saying that, but it's like in the journey I'm gonna have these moments where I allow myself both of those experiences. Yeah. You know, and sometimes there's that harshness of Virgo. I keep coming back to this week was the harshness, is that in order to do that, there's sometimes I'm very relational, you know, Mariah can relate. It's sometimes very hard to actually do the structure or make the achievement, because if there's somebody that has something, I will drop everything to show the fuck up for them or to be present. It's like I'm always like, what else are we doing? You know, there's this Piscean part of me that's just, what else are we doing here? This is what I'm doing everything for anyways. And yet sometimes that can completely derail me from getting my book written, doing the thing that I'm actually doing that is actually serving that high dream. And so to find that balance, I think, is just such a crucial dance between the Virgo Pisces soul.
Very much so, because you're saying it's like, yeah, you can go help this person over here do something and it'll feel good and immediate, and right then you'll get all of those, you know, relational hits and like that you did a good thing, you know, whatever. You know what I mean? Like whatever that Virgo wants, I think you can get it. I think actually that's part of Virgo, it can get, in general, you're talking about a bigger thing, but just applying it to Virgo, I think it can get really drawn in to trying to help during these crisis moments.
Oh, which is an addiction to a dopamine, or it can be.
Exactly.
And it can be like such the masterful skill of that, to be able to be that in those moments of crises.
And I think that's what's so attractive to the Virgo, is because it's so immediate and it feels so good, and you're using all of your faculties to address a problem in the moment.
To be of service for the other, and it creates this huge validation of purpose and this skill set too that I think not a lot of people have. Like, not a lot of people are able to always react as efficiently and skillfully inside of those really high peak moments. But there's something about that you were saying too, just of how that I feel is relevant to now, on how the Virgo is all about service, and yet it's also about that masterful desire for self-actualization. And I think sometimes that those two desires inside of Virgo, like, they are connected, but sometimes I think they get separated in the fact that the Virgo can like emphasize so much on being of service and being perfect for the other, or being purposeful, something to offer the collective, you know, that's worthy. That I think that it actually stops the like the true, authentic. Like, if you imagine Beyonce, like, she is a service to humanity, but like, she is on her mission of perfection herself. Like, it's like the world standards, and then there's the Virgo standards. It's like way above, you know, and we're almost like, we have this whole different, you know, kind of like, it's like the goals are like different. I think with that Virgo is like, it's really trying to bring us out there, you know, to the next state of evolution of ourselves, right? But like, if we can get so focused on that service, then we can really derail like the true, authentic evolution of the self. What is that true offering? You know, I think we were talking about this just the other day of how, you know, massage or, you know, psychology therapy, like all of these, even, you know, singers or anything that we think is like, this is like my mission, this is my passion, you know, any passion for self-evolution can then so quickly lose its magic when it starts to be so much of service that it starts to extract from it. You know?
Yeah.
And I just think that balance between really being able to offer oneself of service, because the Virgo can go the other way and be like, not quite ready yet. You know, it's not perfect yet, I'm not going to offer it yet. And then there's that like constriction of the like Leo expression inside of that, you know, need for perfection, right? And so it's like that balance of being able to go for what you're really being called, that true call of the soul that gives you the what I consider the real dopamine. You know, the real dopamine will actually, like, we'll be able to know, my desire is to know the difference between the trauma-infused dopamine and society hijacked dopamine, and the actual soul dopamine that guides us on what is really authentic for us in the moment and in the high dream, in the journey to the high dream. And then how do we offer it of service along the way? And how does that also then feed us and feed that journey, instead of it just becoming then once was a passion, once was an offering that was true, and now it's become something stale, and it's only taking from the bank account of what was there, of once was really alive, you know?
And another side of that too, of like, how do you make your passions, those deep soul passions, like less hot? You know, that you can actually like look at them and do them.
And that's what I think the maturity and the harshness of Virgo comes in, the sobriety of Virgo, and my desire recently to really, really understand my beautiful dance with dopamine is to be able to really understand where am I truly vulnerable to those hijacking dopamine hits, or those hijacking societal dogmas and conditionings. What are those relational or work-oriented triggers that could hijack that? You know, and how do I create an actual container that's within range for me to
and the
go for that
relationship
hydrate
of time, because if the Pisces is the trance is always now, and the Virgo, I think you're saying there's ways to incorporate that trance of now into what's happening. But there's a lot of, just going back to what we were saying, like maybe being like, I am not going to engage in this relational thing that's really seems really like enticing, whether positively or negatively. It's like drawing my energy to something that's going to happen right now versus like, no, I'm going to put my energy into something that's going to not feel good now. You know, like learning to do a new skill, sitting down to do shit alone in your room doesn't always feel good. It doesn't always feel like the best thing to be doing.
It doesn't feel good when there's all your friends asking you to dance.
Yeah, and you're like, no, I have to stay and practice something I suck at. Like, no, I have to humble myself to suck at something for a certain number of hours to even begin to be proficient.
Or it's another experience to me that I have experienced a lot is that I actually want nothing more than to do that. And it's the hijacking.
God bless your ADHD.
I know. My ADHD.
Or Archive will seriously be with me and be like, it's so horrible. When I start to draw, I just want to draw for 10 hours. I was like, you have attained the creative flow state that most people long for their entire lives. And you're like, darn, it distracted me. It blows my mind that it's like...
Like, I have a hard time going and hanging out with people when I'm being creative because I will not even go to the bathroom or eat.
That's like a fucking nirvana attained. I just can't. I feel like in a Virgo sense, you don't value that ability.
No, I love it. And sometimes there's other things to do, like make money. But no, I do. Thank you for saying that. I really love this part, and yet there's this way in which my hijacking could be like, I want nothing more than to go and do. Like, I'm like, I need to produce my music right now, or I need to go write my book. And instead, I get caught in some relational thing. And my actual dopamine system is trying to pull me away from that.
Right.
And because I have this service-oriented or hold space perfectly or, like, be, there for the emotional process thing, I will stay past my boundary with it to where it then derails me and gets me into something that then ends up being more expensive for me in the long run. Way more expensive. And we always think it's not going to be that much. It's just 5 more minutes. But, the costs of these patterns have really shown me, just, especially when they're a karmic, like, request from the gods. When you look at your chart and it's like, you need to learn this. You've come for this. And for me, I am definitely on this Aries mission, in the 8th house is like, man your energy, like learn this energy of individuality and deep emergent alchemy. And our energy system really tells me when I'm really in authenticity or not. And there's all these tricks along the way that I've been finding. The trickster inside of the dopamine is one of them. But,
and like you were saying, it's like, if you really are listening to that deeper calling, then what's the service? Is it holding space for this person right now? Or is it like following your energy and listening to that other guiding principle?
And that's why I go back to, like, if that Virgo is constantly connected to that Piscean realm, to me it's always easier for me to know that I am okay with being harsh when I remember it's like, who am I of service to? If I know something is feeding the realms of the dragons, I am like able to make those harsh interpersonal, or even take the like projections or whatever rejections of the interpersonal dynamics that can occur.
Yeah. And I just see the other side where, like, when I'm in my Virgo stuff, I can get into that shadow Pisces of just addiction and fantasy and screen escapism and watching, nonstop movies, binge watching
Right.
shit.
Why try too hard for perfection? It's all perfection.
And just, like, it hurts too much. Like, I need to, like, curl up in a ball and let, like, the big wave of whatever pass over me. And it's weird because in evolutionary astrology, Jeffrey with Green and other people too, they say that sort of master-slave dynamic is also present in Virgo. Like, there is something weird about how power happens. Like, I always think it's like, even if you think of wholeness theory, someone's inner critic voices has to be an absolute equal and opposite reaction to their power. Because it has to be the exact amount of inner critic is capable of holding in the exact amount of whatever's trying to come through. That's what keeps it in. That's what keeps it stagnant. So let's say you have 100 units of wanting to do X, thing. Then you need 100 units or 110 units of inner critic keeping you from doing it, keeping you repressed. And so there's actually so much power in an inner critic. And in process work, a lot of what you try and do is you have people embody or sound or tap into just the energy, the sheer amount of energy that's in their inner criticism. Because right now it's happening to the person holding them down, but it's them.
Totally. I love that you're saying this. And also, like, the power inside of the fear, the energy inside of the fear that also, like, fuels the inner critic so much. Like, for me, it's, like, been so liberating to just be like, be a fucking bitch, or let them die. It's like, it sounds so intense. And sometimes
Our
it's like,
guy's version of letting people die is like, I'm gonna tell you it's time for me to go to bed now, as opposed to keep listening to you.
just making simple, normal boundaries to where people are still like, you're going way above and beyond. And I'm just like, I just have to be a crazy psycho bitch that lets them die. And it really feels,
but I think it's
like I had to get to that point,
because it's like now your inner monologue because your inner monologue has to match the power of that critic. Your critic is like, you have to stay there and hold space, and
or they are going to die.
Yeah, that's the edge, right? That's the edge voice.
Yeah.
Is like, if you leave, they'll die. If you abandon them, they'll die.
Yeah.
And you'll have to live with that survivor's guilt for the rest of your life. That's what lives at our edges, our really hugely intense voices, belief systems, emotions, fears. That's what's there. So you actually do need a voice inside that says it's okay to let them die, just to be able to go to bed when it's time for your body to rest.
Yeah. And just owning that has been just so fucking good,
Delicious, yeah. But I think that power thing is strange because Virgo has the tendency, within the Virgo archetype, is both the master and the slave. So I think there is both that master, right? In a sense, a lot of us, without a huge amount of personal work, and often even with a huge amount of personal work, are slaves to our inner critic masters, who are energy bodies are usually slaves to the masters of our goals, who are like whipping us around, telling us to do things, and we're like,
which in your chart you want to look at your Pluto and your Saturn to get a little clue of the archetypal face, the archetypal energy of your slave master.
You might also find this in characters in your life, such as your lovers, your siblings, your parents, mean teachers. Right? These are the people.
Yeah, and they become your internalized
figures.
Yeah.
And also, I think when Virgo is on that other side of feeling judgy and bitchy and I know the right way to do it, they can also be really master, and everyone else is their little plebeian peasant slaves who are like doing it so incompetently.
Oh, guilty. Okay, I'm
so it's like,
gonna start owning it in case anyone gets triggered.
So it's like
I'll try to manage my judgy bitchiness of the incompetence of humanity, but
for not like living up to your Virgoian standards.
Yeah, I'm letting the Pisces beautiful nature of the creatures thrive. And that's where it can also get, you know, very hijacked by service.
Right.
Martyrdom. Saviorism.
And then all of a sudden, there you go. A hip, hop, skip, and a jump, and all of a sudden now you're a slave.
Yep.
How fucked up are archetypes? Totally. They like contain these things. They hold like all the different sides of things.
I finally realized it, and like literally since I was a baby, spending so much of my energy being of service, trying to save and help humanity heal, to then realize that so much of my energy just goes into the very patterns that are enslaving them. You know? Like to see the vital life force energy going to save the victim, then watch it funnel right into the like hypothetical or energetic perpetrator, go into its like heroin toxic needle and shove it right back into the victim. And just watch that, like, holy shit, if we are in this dynamic, we are always going to maintain this toxic geometry. Like, we must liberate ourselves from all of the roles, even if one of them feels better than the other. You know?
And that takes also, like, clearing out a lot of those belief systems.
Exactly.
A lot of those karmic roles.
And for me, being really in touch with that dance between the service and what is truly authentic for, like, my desires of, like, what am I really wanting to express and create and to self-actualize into and offer is, like, needs to be in balance or liberated from just that illusion of service. The journey of Virgo is so deep.
It's so deep. I would like to just say as we're wrapping up, my last thing I want to put in there about Virgo that was so fucking deep. Welcome to Soul Dynamics of Virgo. I also just want to put in our prayer bundle to you, dear Virgo. That Virgos are fucking hilarious. Like they have that Mercury, that wordplay, that joke ability, that like scramble your brain, that point some shit out and make you laugh about your deepest traumas. They have that power.
We're so connected, babe. I was literally thinking about pointing this out like right in the very beginning because I was like, we never think about the hilarious like trickster of Virgo, but it's Mercury.
It's Mercury.
And the story that comes to my mind is just how you were making fun of me for like trying to be perfect, and me literally thinking, like I said, my Virgo is my rising, and I literally have this image of myself like I'm this like martial artist, dynamic, feng shui, like moving with precision and poiseness, and I'm always striving for this, really. And
it's part of the high dream.
It's part of the high dream. And there's a lot of me that can't be in this. And yet I'm also this crazy trickster that is like moving really intensely and
a full-blown Aries, ADHD, total
chaotic
gesture. Yeah, whirlwind, force of nature, 10 billion cylinders firing at once.
And in my brain, I'm like standing here with this poise, like holding this, you know,
like in a Tai Chi form on a cliffside, like with 7 arms, each holding a tool being used in perfect precision.
And Mariah was just making fun of me, like, who in your life thinks of you? And she's like doing this posture of me holding a paintbrush, you know, thinks of you like this. Like, is it your clients? And I'm laughing and I'm like, not even them.
Not your friends, not your family, not your lovers. No. You're like, which one is archive? This one with a paintbrush moving at the speed of a slug? Or is it this, like, wild creature, like, fucking 17 hands and feet climbing a wall all over the place? Like, everyone knows it's the second one. Even the clients.
And somehow that is Virgo. So I don't know where the like I don't know what the like lesson inside of that is for everyone and myself.
Like, what makes the second one wrong? Like, why are you?
It's my Virgo perception of what is right, and I think that's where it's like that mercurial thing can get a little, you know, the thought forms can get a little crazy,
a little detached from the material reality
of what's true nature of Mercury in physical form is like a fucking wild Hanuman monkey, like flying through all these dimensions of reality and like bringing it into physical form.
Oh my goodness.
But you know,
case in point.
Yeah.
Case in point, y'all. I think that's a great place to end it. So good to be with you. So good to be with you. So good to be with everybody. Power, power, power to the Virgos. And so much love.